now exceeded. This is the Imperial Flight Operations Bureau signing off. Landing gear.
Capacity exceeded. Landing gear deployed.
Landing successful. Clear to disembark.
Incoming message. assist on. Landing gear deployed. Docking successful. Engines disengaged. drive charging.
Access to docking facilities requires flight control authorization. Please submit requests before entering the docking bay. We would like to remind all commanders to avoid blocking access to docking pads during arrival and departure. For the safety of all visitors, be considerate of other vessels while passing through the main access corridor.
Share party audio. Sure, got all this good. Oh, you're good to go in there? Okay. Okay. My chroma key doesn't delete my green background. That's kind of funny. Alright, enter. Alright, it looks to be the case that everything is on and running. Alright, hey, I'm Tom. I am the author of the name logs. I'm also Commander Halfluck on both PS4 and PlayStation. I don't usually like to put my face in people's faces, so this is a treat for the audience. Currently, I've got Commander Filthymick420, who's a member of the Raxxla Squadron, in the audio chat. You'll hear from him in just a second. Before I get to him, I'll give sort of a brief rundown of what's going on. So again, I'm the author of the name logs. It's a fictional piece on Inara, which is a third-party website that operates in tandem with Elite Dangerous and Elite Dangerous Universe. I believe it's an information aggregate and also a sort of platform for budding authors and creative types to write about their experiences or write about anything that's going on or that catches their fancy within the Elite Dangerous universe. I've been currently writing the name logs since February. They are about two girls, Cadence and Coral Name, and their handler, for lack of a better term, the man in the black suit or dad. I've been doing that since February. Picked up Elite Dangerous not long before then, but really early on when I was playing it on the PlayStation side. I checked out the CQC, which, as best I can tell, still is relatively not active. However, when I was in there, I ran into this Commander Filthymick, and we played for a little while. We had a few chats, walked me through a number of things like builds, things you can do in the BGS, possible options for future operations and tasks that I can set myself to in the game. And at the time, I believe he was not, or Raxxla Squadron had not been put together. He'll correct me on that as it comes along. But he's now a member of Raxxla, which is a relatively large squadron on the PlayStation 4 side. I will give you a glimpse at sort of what they're up to here. I believe it's somewhere in the area of 200 players. As you can see, Nane's got one. That's still currently me. I'm looking for someone who would be willing to do some writing. At most, I'm looking for maybe 12 people across 3 platforms. And I'm looking for an Xbox Squadron commander. But that's neither here nor there. Raxxla. Again, 267 players on the PlayStation side. For a short amount of time, I was in their chat, and it is, for lack of a better term, I don't know if this is what these people are like in their real lives, but overall, it seems the way that it's been presented to me, it's like a fairly ragtag accumulation of guys that are all really interested in the Raxxla mysteries and all things Elite Dangerous. Commander Filthymick found his way into the logs that I've been writing as Mickey, or Commander Filthymick. And based on the description that was sort of talked through with me by Commander Filthymick420, he came up with a character that was, I believe it was an onion head addict who used to collect, or he used to love to collect trinkets and other random objects of sort of archaic note and archaeological interest. And I've played it, or at least I've written it in the way that I found to be relatively appropriate for the age of the commander that I'm looking at the fact that Cadence is a 19-year-old pilot, and I would like to keep it relatively fun. So he has made, I believe, 2 appearances. He's made 2 appearances in the logs thus far, and I hope to have more as things go along and I progress in the game and as he progresses with his squadron as well. Long intros aside, Commander Filthy Mick, you are free to introduce yourself. If there's anything you'd like to sort of open up with, you have the floor.
What's going on? I'm Filthymick420. See, I started playing Elite, I want to say September of 2017, which apparently was very shortly after it launched on PlayStation 4, which, I didn't even know about this game until my brother put me onto it. Upon further research, I realized that I used to watch my uncle play the original when I was a kid. That kind of was cool. Like, the whole concept of this game, go anywhere in the galaxy, relatively anywhere. Do anything. You could be law-abiding, you could be a criminal, minor, savior of the galaxy through AX combat or BGS manipulation. It's just very attractive proposition for a video game. It seems very... I can't find the word I want to use. Ambitious.
Yeah,
It's a very
absolutely.
ambitious undertaking for a game. And, what is this, like 4 years later? I'm kind of... I don't know how long I've been playing. It's an off and on thing, too. I'll play really hardcore for a few months and then take, like, a few months off.
Right, I remember there was a point where I was getting super heavy into it. I think it was like right at the start of when I started doing the name logs. You mentioned you and Raxxla, like the entire squadron, were taking like a huge break after one of the squadron seasons.
Oh yeah, I think that was... we were going for the trade trophy.
Yeah.
A lot of us were putting in a lot of time working towards it. Wing missions and just like marathon days. It was shortly after they nerfed mining, or not necessarily nerfed mining so much as caught everything up to its level of profitability. So, it was good to be doing something different for a change, and then at the same time we ground it to a stub.
Yeah, I believe you were playing, what was that game? You were playing the science fiction RPG. It was a third
the
person.
Outer Worlds.
Yeah. I think that made it into one of your early recruiting posters, didn't it?
Might have.
Ah.
I'm not 100% sure. There's been some good posters. Actually, Doom does most of, I want to say most of, if not all of the recruitment art, clip art.
Okay, now
whatever else.
Mick is referring to Commander Doomface who is also a member of Raxxla, and was also one of the other guys that happened to be in the CQC on the night and couple nights that we played really early on when I switched over to PlayStation. He's also made it into the logs as as the character himself. And he himself is also one of the explorers of the bunch, I guess, if there isn't a better way to put that. And has been doing, from what I remember in our discussion, a lot of exploring, a lot of what do they call it? Exobiology?
Yeah.
Xenobiology and exo. In the logs, I read about him shooting research limpets at one of the space fungus as a sort of aspect of what science is. On the logs, I don't want to talk about the logs right now. Let's continue talking about what you guys are up to. So how much can you tell me, or are you willing to tell me, and for people listening, about Raxxla as a squadron. And Raxxla is a whole huge big thing in the Elite Dangerous world. But specifically your squadron. Like, what's the digs on Raxxla Squadron?
Well, our main focus, our main public goal is basically acquiring new commanders, whether they're new to the game or experienced and have been playing, helping newer players get educated on like all of the the huge amount of information there is to take in with learning this game and everything that is going on in it, with it. Things like the BGS and engineering, loadouts for PvE and PvP combat, Guardian modules, and going around getting that out, checking out the different mysteries of the galaxy, like certain settlements where you can find audio logs, stuff like the Far God cult logs that you'll find on like the Prophet settlement. I think there's another one, I can't remember the name too offhand.
But you guys are fairly organized with that too, as far as I can tell. I remember being in the chat for a while, and you guys having graphics documents printed up where it's like, if you're, we're making this trip to Colonia soon. If you want to come with us, make sure you have all of these things. If you're going to bring these ships, make sure you have all these things. You'd have, I believe you guys had numerous build PDFs or photos printed up that you could send out to the group as well.
Yeah, I refer to them as like informational brochures.
Yeah, they're like
yeah, and they're like a godsend. Like we got some that'll teach you. It'll like detail, like you said, for the trip to Colonia, it had like the important stops along the way. I think, what is that, the conflux sites for, what was that, the derelict mega ships, generation ships that went missing.
Right.
That are on the way to Colonia. There was the conflux. I don't remember. I think there was a ship.
Huh.
But it was a while ago whenever we went out there.
Gonna have to write that down.
I think that there's some sites. I have to see what they are. Is this guy trying to kill me?
Might be. There are numerous gankers in the Elite Dangerous universe. It's a dangerous place. Make sure you keep your wits about you.
Oh no, it's just an NPC Anaconda. It's part of this mission. Confused for a minute because I didn't have any cargo.
Now, the Raxxla guys, I believe you guys don't really pick, how do I put this? There isn't any like huge selection and initiation process that I remember when it comes to Raxxla Squadron. What's like your what is your squadron's sort of take on how to make that work? You've sort of explained that you guys would like to look at new pilots or old pilots as well, but you essentially sort of teach them the ropes and sort of get them going on their Elite Dangerous journey. Are there specific types of pilots or players that you are looking for specifically to keep sort of Raxxla what it is? Or at least what you know.
I guess pretty much any type is welcome. Well, obviously we try to avoid like toxic type people, that are just outwardly offensive on purpose. Gankers and griefers, anyone that might draw like negative attention or try to give the squadron itself a bad reputation through their actions, which isn't necessarily something you can find out about a person beforehand at all times. So it's sort of a process of get people in and see how they're doing, make sure that, you know what I mean, any types of reports other people might give us about how their activities negatively could be impacting us. We try to avoid and take that into consideration. When approaching stuff like that, you know, we almost never will jump to any like harsh conclusions. We try to get it into a discussion, you know, where people can at least say their part or maybe their interpretation of what happened, which 9 times out of 10, a guilty party outs themselves in that situation anyhow, just from feeling like they're getting an intervention run on them. I'm not exactly sure the mind state on it. But yeah, you know, it's the focus is basically for new players, new pilots, give them as much information as we can get them to them easily so that they can play the game the way they'd like to, with, you know, like the best knowledge of how to get to where they want to be for that play style.
Yeah,
whether it
totally.
be, you know, like adventurous exploration, BGS manipulation, anti-Xeno stuff, or whatever.
Yeah.
You
Now,
know, we
this-
got somebody in about every... we used to have, I want to say, an expert in every category. Yeah, we've had some people tend to drift off or play less due to time constraints in real life or whatever else.
Doomface is claiming in the chat here that everything that you're saying is lies. Just so you know.
Oh yeah, no, it's always use the inverse negative of what you mean to say.
That is correct. Yeah. Yeah. So I've so you mentioned you want to get the people that are in that are going to create like a relatively good atmosphere for the other good players. You want to make sure you keep out you want to keep out players that are going to create a situation that makes it less likely for for anyone that's coming in to want to continue to play Elite Dangerous. Now, is that
Right.
is that specific to the players themselves, or is it does that mean that you guys are sort of antagonistic towards things like PvP, ganking, griefing, any form of BGS manipulation? I don't mean I've heard of like the PC guys using things like bots to manipulate things that are going on.
Stuff like that too. I don't know how accurate that is. I know it's always a possibility, but thankfully it's not something. Yeah, you know, I was gonna say thankfully it's not something we have to deal with on this end, but with the shared galaxy across all platforms, you know, the BGS that they manipulate would technically still affect us. If it were in a system, you know, that we were trying to work for whatever reason. So, yeah, I disagree with... I'm kind of against most forms of cheating competitively in games. Like, I don't know. I say most forms because it depends on what you're playing. Sometimes that type of stuff, like if you ever played Ark, a modded lobby is a lot of fun. There's not really a lot of competitiveness to it. It's a whole different story. Something like
I don't
Elite
know what that
Dangerous,
is.
though, Ark is like that... What do? You like it's a survival game where you're on an island and there's dinosaurs?
Oh, I do know that game. Okay. Right. Right. Well, so you mentioned cheating.
I guess for me, anything that might kind of ruin the spirit of the game itself is like something I would tend to avoid. So, you know, like
Now there's
I can't think of any real examples off of this.
I've got a guy here. I've got an NPC trying to tell me. I'm gonna take the interdiction and do some combat. So now would be a good time. Now, from what I've gathered through sort of peering around in the PvP community, there are some relatively, or at least the appearance of some relatively sacred rules pertaining to what goes on in PvP and what's allowed and what's disallowed and sort of how that works. There's also the idea that as long as you're playing the game, you've got to be ready and willing to play the game that comes to you. Do you have any, when it comes to what you said about cheating?
Mhm.
Now, are there specific things you mean when it comes to cheating? Do you mean like, no? I know that there are certain communities that within the game that are very anti-torpedo, that are very anti-specific forms of weapons. Is that something you guys stray from, or is that something you guys aren't particularly concerned about within Raxxla? What is your squadron's approach to the PvP, PvE ideas that say that there's one is one thing, the other is the other thing. There's a specific way to make things work, and there are specific things you can and can't do.
I can only speak for myself in this instance, but I believe that the way that we view it is like, if you're tracking down a known ganker who's like kill on sight, then it's like anything goes. Gang up on them, interdict them, torps, missiles, whatever. I guess I feel like whenever there's organized PvP going on, so someone agrees to a duel or whatever, typically I guess whatever their specific rules that they want to use is often discussed beforehand to avoid any type of discrepancy in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes I say, because I have seen instances where someone will start talking about after a fight, like, oh, you used torpedoes and a ship-launched fighter. That's cheating. It's not fair. And, I mean, I don't have any names to names, and probably wouldn't anyways. But to me personally, I feel like, well, you can't move the goalpost after the ball's been thrown, like, and caught.
Right. No, I understand that. I mean, I know that there are groups of folks that I've played with that have a very specific idea about sort of the dojo style. This isn't a reference to a specific gaming group, but sort of that martial arts tournament style where you give yourselves a bow and do a little, salute before every combat setting.
Right.
And specific weapon settings, phasing sequences out, torpedoes are out. I believe there's a specific beam laser setting that's out. Can't use healing lasers or regeneration sequence in team combat, things of that sort. I've always seen that as sort of in the game, because it's in the game. That's sort of what the deal is.
I tend to agree with your opinion on that personally, but at the same time, I don't really do a lot of PvP. Myself. Because I don't focus so much on it, I'm not that good at it, and then not being that good at it kind of encourages you to not get involved with it. I don't know. Sometimes, I've done it a few times, and it's good fun, but I don't like doing too much stuff competitively, because then when I start to lose, I start to feel sad. As we all do, of course, when that happens.
It's not a fun. Well, it's a little fun to lose. This is actually
It can be fun to lose.
This is actually a really good
Definitely
game.
an education.
Yeah, this is one of the better games when it comes to PvP and not necessarily having to be always victorious. Although it's not as fun as winning by any stretch of the imagination. So in terms of like that philosophy, there's no. Do you happen to think that the game needs that sort of division between sort of organized PvP and very specific things you can do within organized PvP, and then all bets are off PvE, where if this isn't an organized PvP event, someone hits you with a torp, that's sort of good to go.
Right, and see, me, a lot of that I think could be what's the word I'm looking for? Addressed pretty easily with a few updates to how CQC is done. Where, you know what I mean, before the match itself, people could. I play a lot of Call of Duty, right? And you can do custom matches where it's like.
Yeah, you guys are an aggressive lot, man. You FPS guys.
Right, it's weird too. Like, I play Call of Duty competitively on, like hardcore. Usually it's like hardcore search and destroy. And I love that, but for some reason on Elite Dangerous, I don't get so much of. There's so much more to do than just that, I guess, is what it is for me. Like, to me, the
Totally.
concept of having to tactfully manipulate the BGS and counteract whatever action someone else might be doing, put in more victories for the war effort, or whatever it is, that appeals to me a little bit more than just shooting with the other guys. Or girls, however it may be. But I still enjoy it, just not as often. What I think would be fun is if there was more, a better reason, you know what I mean? Something more specifically involved in the story of the game that the PvP would be going on. Oh, wait.
Now you're talking. I think we may have talked about this before, and I know this came up a few different times in the forums. You still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
There's been a lot of chatter on the forums about the BGS and PvP not sort of being built in a way that
But it works
makes
together very well.
well that really incentivizes PvP combat as a driving force within that overall system of the game. I mean, I haven't found it particularly difficult to find guys that would be willing to PvP or just scrum when I'm looking for some combat. I don't know. Do you happen to have any thoughts on sort of that aspect of how the BGS works? Again, as a nearly 270 person squadron, you guys are doing far more things in terms of manipulating the BGS and pushing it in any given direction that you actually want to push it in, rather than sort of the smaller sort of reconnaissance and scoping out and getting to know what's going on in all the different regions that I'm doing with Maine. Is there a specific set of thoughts or suggestions or features that you think would actually make the implementation of the PvP or combat in general between actual commanders sort of a more interesting aspect of the game, rather than just a bunch of folks getting together and then shooting each other?
It's hard to say, because entertainment's subjective, and like what I might enjoy, you might also enjoy, but like a third party may not. I think there's things that could be done. I've seen a lot of amazing suggestions in the forums, and sadly enough, a lot of them get crapped on by cynical people just having a go at someone.
Yeah, that
so
happens.
It's kind of,
I mean, it's the video
like,
gaming industry. It's
right.
It's not exactly. It's the video gaming, especially the forums. It's the video gaming industry, and then also it's the internet. So let's be.
I think, yeah, and I think like power play could be worked a little bit better. That it would incentivize, yeah, whatever.
Encourage.
That it could encourage people to want to play more in open and to take part in some of the PvP. Maybe there's something that could be done where certain government types or certain system states, due to government types, could ban certain types of weapons when they're in their system, and that could be a way that. And this might be like the last topic still. For the things like when people don't want to use torpedoes or such and such in certain fights, you know what I mean? Like there could actually be an in-universe reason for that applied to the game, given the right people behind the pen. Ooh, let me see. But, I think it'd be really interesting doing like conflict zones against other people in that kind of a way. But instead of it being, like fill so many buckets to end the war, maybe it could be more like a battle royale where, X number of people show up and last team standing wins the conflict zone.
Now, is this the kind of thing where you're thinking, because of the nature of the BGS, certain player factions tend to come into contact with one another, where the player factions themselves could initiate these combat zones and could initiate these wars sort of from within the BGS system. Then,
Yeah, I think something like that would be.
I believe Raxxla's currently associated with the Dark Wheel, correct?
That's correct.
So if you were, you guys are doing your thing, and then you say, okay, we're entering into Rhea. We want to do combat with one of the EDF factions in there, or we want to go to war with one of the EDF factions in there. Is that the feature sort of that you're referring to in terms of creating sort of more active player involvement in the production of combat situations within the BGS and the power play system? I mean, things of that sort is sort of what I'm asking.
Yeah, I actually think that that's a pretty decent idea. It would be good to like be able to basically invite another faction in competitive combat through BGS, as opposed to it just being the people in the little playground that you're at. The factions in the system that you're in. Maybe I could target a specific faction in a different system. Maybe specifically, like in universe, maybe their government type is something that our government type it would be against, or something. You know what I mean? Like not us specifically, just this generalization. I think it could work. A lot of people have been targeting anarchies for a long time because they're like, in terms of the game universe, the bad guys in the game, they're always the pirate faction. They're always whatever, and I don't know. I think it would make it easier for stuff like that. Like an anarchy faction might target specifically like a patronage.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that comes up relatively often in discussions that I've had with people in the BGS, or rather about the BGS, is sort of the relative opacity and sort of relative cardboardy nature of the government types. I mean, I see what's going on in terms of how it works. But that is definitely something that comes up a lot. A little more life, a little more modularity, I guess is the best way to put it, in terms of how the governments work, which governments work where, how the governments work within the PvP. It's a thing that's come up a lot within sort of the Elite Dangerous milieu. So, as for this BGS situation, I know that we all share, and for those who are unaware of the way Elite Dangerous works, there are 3 platforms, all of which share the same persistent universe, or persistent world. So anything that's going on within this BGS layer, which is sort of like when you're playing a game like Total War, you have your own space that you have to begin to conquer and expand from, as do the other players that are playing the game. These things are constantly happening in Elite Dangerous as well. It's just happening on a 1-to-1 scale of the actual galaxy. So there's a lot of room, and there are a lot of players that are constantly scrumming for pieces of territory. As it stands, the single persistent world, again, which we all share on the Xbox, on PlayStation 4, and on PC, operates the same when you are in when you're playing in any one of the 3 modes. Solo, which is when you play, you basically go into the game, you're playing solo mode, you're playing by yourself, you interact only with NPCs. There's also a private group mode where you play with a group of players that you yourself invite in. and anyone is welcome to create their own server into which people can be invited. And then there's the open mode, which tends to be the one that I play, which is pretty much everyone that's playing in open sees anyone else that's playing in open. I know that you guys in Raxxla, when I first started playing with you guys, and by you guys I mean specifically you and Doom and Super Cooker, who is, I believe, currently still listed as the squadron commander of Raxxla on the PlayStation 4 end. I know you guys were playing a lot in open. I've noticed that you guys will also tag into a private group every once in a while. Is there like a specific philosophy behind the private group? Is there a specific set of reasoning or rationalizations that you use sort of to put yourself in there as opposed to going in the open? And do you have any thoughts on the ideas that some people have heretofore expressed pertaining to like solo and private group being a bit of a cheat code? That's not the right word. It creates a situation in which you guys can actually do sort of, you guys can do sort of it's like a form of protectionism, where you and your community can sort of do what you want to do in the BGS without having to deal with the potential confrontations with any of the other groups within the BGS. What's like Raxxla's statement on private and open? And then, do you have any thoughts about that of your own?
Well, I guess personally, if I'm in private group over open, I never really looked at it like hiding in private or hiding in solo. So much as, if I'm trying to do something specific for a specific reason or trying to accomplish something and would just like to accomplish it in my limited playtime without interruption, as opposed to if I'm not doing anything that might be important to my goals or plans, then I'm usually just bebopping around in open. For my first 2 years that I played in open and almost never encountered anybody except for maybe once or twice on the way to an engineering system or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't
same wise.
I know there's like ganker, griefer types that play, but I personally don't end up experiencing too much involving them unless I'm in a specific hot spot where people are known to be like that. Which I don't even think... I know there's still some that exist, but it doesn't seem to be at the level like that public outcry would suggest.
I've been told that there was a point where they nerfed bounties and combat bots. I'm relatively new to the PlayStation side, and I didn't do too much playing of the game until maybe 3 years ago. So I picked up the game back in 2016, but for all intents and purposes, just found the idea of playing a space flight sim to be repulsive without a HOTAS. It just doesn't feel right to me, man. I've been playing...
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I remember playing... I think I talked to you about this a while ago. I remember playing Ace Combat, the first Ace Combat, and Colony Wars, and the Wing Commander games on the way old PlayStation. Like, way back in the day, PlayStation 1. And those games were the shit to me. I fucking love those games. They were a little over the top in terms of, Mark Hamill and the Chewbacca lion dude.
Yeah.
But it was space adventure at its, finest for me, in terms of being able to go in, pilot a ship, blow some shit up, and then watch a movie at the same time.
Right.
Now, the sort of transitioning from that, you mentioned that you remember playing the game, or rather watching your grandfather play the original Elite. Now
My
again,
uncle, yeah.
Uncle. Now I've only been playing again since the PlayStation one, since maybe 2019, so a couple of years. I played the PC side for a short amount of time before my computer started to get all weird. So from 2018 to now, I've been playing it pretty heavily. But there's also about a 4 or 5 year development of the Elite Dangerous community that exists now. And then beyond that, there's also this multi-generational community of people that know Frontier, know David Braben, and know what he's creating, and sort of saw the vision from the Kickstarter. Like, do you have any, what are your sort of thoughts on sort of entering into that, for lack of a better term, like rich tradition of video gamers who all have this idea and this love for this specific thing that they just created?
I think it's amazing. I remember after I first started getting into this game, I like to obsess on things whenever they're new to me and shiny, and so I started like researching its history. My brother told me, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of books that people write about it. It's about a game from back in the '80s," and I was looking it up, and I mean, I don't know how accurate of a statement this is, but from what I've read, I feel like the original Elite, like Ian Bell and David Braben, what they released in 1984, sparked a different way that people were looking at approaching making games. I read somewhere that the guy who ended up turning, I think it was DMA Games or something like that, into Rockstar, they made the first Grand Theft Auto because of the influence that Elite had on them. Like, to change it to like being able to play a non-linear open world
Right.
kind of game. And so now like we have Grand Theft Auto today, like 20 years later, or however long it's been, like 25 years later, and it's like one of the biggest names in the franchise. And all of that was inspired by this little niche game. Or not inspired, I guess, but you know what I mean, like the inspiration for the idea that turned into Grand Theft Auto and what it is today came from a small niche game that a lot of people have heard of, but it's never, I don't think, been considered a mainstream game.
Yeah, no, I don't expect this. I mean, spaceflight on the whole, anything having to do with like piloting on the whole in the video game industry is relatively niche. The degree to which Frontier did it with this one is equally niche. I mean, there's no doubt that like the current. Yeah, I would go so far as to say that. I mean, this and Ace Combat are probably the games that I would think really sort of set the tone for flying games in the gaming industry on the whole. Microsoft has their flight simulator. That's fine. They do their thing. But in terms of like, and I've spoken about this before, I've played Star Wars Squadrons, and I've also played Eve Valkyrie, and both of those games are perfectly fine for what they are. But in terms of like the actual getting behind the flight stick, and getting into the cockpit, there's sort of nothing that compares to this specific game in terms of the flight physics and how that all works, and I enjoy it for that reason alone.
Yeah,
the degree to which... Go ahead.
I have a hard time getting... I've also played Valkyrie Online and Star Wars Squadrons. I own both of those. I've also tried No Man's Sky, which is, another very ambitious title.
Yeah, that thing
reason,
is ridiculous.
I don't know, they're great, and the amount of stuff that they offer is great, but it just doesn't seem to scratch the same itch that Elite tends to reach.
I'm locked in with you on that one. I'm absolutely locked in with you on that one.
And I have like the hardest time explaining the why of it. Because I don't think I understand why specifically.
No, I'm totally there. I have a neighbor who is huge on No Man's Sky. I played it a couple of times. I played it on VR. And again, there's nothing... I can think of no real critique for a game of that scale. I remember being an undergrad and both of those games being in development, along with Kerbal and I believe it was Everspace.
Everspace, yeah.
Everspace. Now, all of those games being sort of relatively neck and neck in terms of their development. And they all turned into different things. And again, I don't have any critique of No Man's Sky beyond it's not Elite Dangerous, which is not a fair critique at all.
Right. No.
But in terms of the flying, again, like the actual physics, it just feels like a space game that I would expect it to feel. The ships don't move the way they're not supposed to. Because of things like inertia and physics. And that's just sort of the way I see it.
And you get so much variation in the flight from different ships.
From ship to ship, depending on where you are in the systems. Now, I know that there's a ton... Yeah, your build as well. The heavier the ship, in terms of tonnage, the slower it moves, the harder it is to turn. Now, I know that there are a lot of Elite Dangerous players... Well, not a lot. There is a solid voice within the Elite Dangerous community that does have that, like, that wish that Elite Dangerous had the same degree of interactivity planet side and sort of the number of options of things that are available to do beyond, just getting in your ship and flying and then running missions.
Right.
Now we have the Odyssey thing that's coming out, or is out on PC now, and I'm sure all the PC guys are loving it, and that's great for them. Cool.
Yeah.
For us console folks, we're still waiting on it. Now I know it's been a rough launch. I think you were around when I posted that bloopers video of me trying to exit a Coriolis starport in a Cobra and crashing the entire way through it and then exploding as I left.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
I know you've also, again, you've been tracking sort of what's been going on in the Elite Dangerous community, sort of because that's the way you look at it. Now, are you excited for Odyssey? Are there things that you're looking forward to? Are there things that they've mentioned sort of over the streams, over the forums, in conversation with other players that you were hoping that they're going to get rid of, get better before they get to console? Like, what is your sort of stance on that approach, and how do you think that might sort of expand the experience for console players that maybe want to dip into Elite Dangerous a little more, but they also really like No Man's Sky because you can get on ground, you can build shit, you can shoot people, things of that sort.
Yeah. I was really excited for Odyssey release whenever the build-up was coming to it. It definitely hit a wall pretty hard whenever it dropped, and everyone's reaction to the way that it would play on apparently even high-end computers with expensive graphic cards. Now, I don't own a PC at all, let alone something capable of playing a game more advanced than Minecraft. But let me see.
There were some rough reviews.
Some of the graphics cards that people have cost an upwards of $2,000 and still weren't able to get better than like as good as 30 frames per second in some of the settlements, I suppose, or like
I had read that.
stations. And without myself being able to understand a lot of what goes on in development and programming, other people are saying that it's stuff like culling, structures that are like not visible because they're like below a surface. Say like the area between the outside of the station that you can see and the inside of the station that you can see. Maybe there's like a lot of framework and pieces still being rendered that don't need to be rendered. I don't know. A lot of people are saying now there's like a lot of conflicts, a lot of conflicting statements regarding how performance is. Stuff like, oh, it's running good for me, you got to do this, and that to your settings, and that'll make it work perfectly fine. As opposed to, like, isn't that doing a lot of extra, though? Like, usually you throw in a game and it loads up and you just start playing it. You don't got to get in there and, like, rewrite half of, like, the quality, and I don't know what it's like on PC. That could be a normal thing for a lot of people.
As a console kid, I know it. I totally and absolutely know what you mean. It's the easiest thing in the world to take that disc or take that cartridge and then put it in and then plug your controller in and then you're good to go. I've seen all the install stuff. I remember being a kid and talking to PC gamers that would talk about things like mods and how you can alter the code here and there, and then it would create this thing, and I was like, why? But you just press the button, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
From what I've been told, from what I've read, it looks like that's sort of the approach that Frontier's been taking to this Odyssey release on console. Where it seemed like they were far more willing to take the risk in terms of sort of a comfort with their PC audience, in the sense that they would put out the game and say, this is the rough cut. We know you guys are going to come at us with some crazy shit, and you guys are going to have a bunch of complaints. There are going to be things that you want to have done, and we're going to let you guys do that. Whereas with the console players, there's sort of this understanding that we just want the game to work. So, like, please make it work. Now, in terms of your current experience, do you feel like you would have been willing to put in that debug sort of game testing sort of mentality to playing Elite Dangerous while you're playing it on console? You feel like that's a thing? How do I put this? Would you have wanted them to release it along with the PC end?
It's hard
and then
to say.
have to have dealt with all that stuff. I know Sony's got its own policies on that, but
the reason I think that it's a difficult thing to consider is if you look at how Cyberpunk 2077 released on PlayStation 4, and some people, a couple people I know in the squadron, like, whenever they tried to install it, or whenever they played it, it bricked their entire PlayStation.
I read about those horror stories. Yeah.
I imagine something very similar to that might have happened with Odyssey if it would have released with any parity to its PC release.
Right. Now, Frontier, I know Frontier works with, they have their own proprietary development engine. They've got the Cobra engine, it's their thing.
Yeah, the Cobra engine.
Yeah, it allows them to do sort of what any programming from any, or rather for any platform, and then just create a build from their own PC development side. Do you happen to think that, or have you given any thought, rather, to the possibility that they would be doing them. This might not be a good question. Whether they would be doing themselves sort of a disservice by waiting on the console release, in spite of whatever rules and regulations Sony may have had, which clearly, based on the Cyberpunk release that you just mentioned, may not exist in the way that we as gamers would like.
Right.
But may have potentially expanded sort of the Odyssey releases scale of over the horizon capacities, I guess is the best way to put it, in terms of their ability to look at the console version and see, okay, we're getting all this stuff going on in the console version, and it, because we released it when we released it on the PC side, we can now work on these things in the whole. Whereas now, the way that they have it, they're going to have this thing sort of done on the PC end, which they're going to be working on through that Cobra engine, and then they'll release it on the PS4 side, and then we'll still have sort of these significant problems. Is that anything you've sort of thought about in terms of your own gaming experience? I know you're not an exclusively dangerous gamer,
Right.
but you've seen all these things, so I question whether or not that's something you are looking at, whether or not that's something that's going to affect your play experience when it comes to console, whether it's going to affect the play experience of other Raxxla folks that you play with, and anyone else that you play with on the PS4 side.
So I'm hopeful that whenever they do start building their console version, which I assume should have been at least as done as the Odyssey release was when they did the alpha initially.
Huh?
Otherwise, I mean, you know what did they expected to be able to release? I don't remember if they initially expected to release them together.
I think there was
if console was
right.
supposed to be delayed specifically from the door.
No, there was
I remember at one
the
point
COVID
in time.
the COVID
Yeah,
situation
COVID
created it created this weird time warp. I remember they were scheduled to be released sort of at a similar point in time, and then the COVID thing happened and it slowed down the entire development timeline for everybody, really, including Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Now
Cyberpunk should have probably got pushed back too, realistically.
it was not. It was a really interesting game idea to me when I saw it. And then I saw the reviews, and then I was slightly less interested.
Yeah, that kind of happened to me too.
It happens. No, this is sort of why I asked about the idea of sort of Frontier potentially doing themselves a disservice or a favor. Again, the people that want to play Cyberpunk are still playing Cyberpunk. That's sort of not...
Yeah.
That's not going to be an issue. And again, with Elite Dangerous being sort of a niche genre, just because it's a flight sim in general, and an MMO flight sim at that, it's relatively niche. The people that are going to want to play it are going to want to play it. You'll coax people in, and really, I've been thinking about this for quite some time. The Odyssey release is probably going to coax in some players that wouldn't have otherwise decided to play a space MMO.
Right.
It brings in, you specifically are a FPS player, and I think there's no way to make it so that the space feet or space legs can occur from a third-person perspective, but that would probably... This whole space legs thing, I expect to probably introduce or provide a means for them to introduce any number of other players that enjoy the first-person shooter genre into this entire world that is the Elite world.
Yeah. I think if I can tell anything from the forums, it seems like there's been an influx of players that have joined specifically through interest to Odyssey that are then discovering an interest in the spaceflight aspect of the game. I'm kind of hoping. Well, I have mixed feelings about this because Odyssey seems, as it is right now, that most of the gameplay loops just involve the engineering grind for Odyssey content engineering.
Right.
And, like, I can't say this personally firsthand, but a lot of the voices that I've heard talking about it would like to imply that after you've done those gameplay loops and unlocked the engineers and, you know, got your favorite gear made the way you want it to be, that there's not a lot of reason to keep going through those gameplay loops. I'm assuming that that's at the moment because they've got so many wrinkles they have to iron out.
I mean, you don't think... So, one of the big things about Elite Dangerous that I've heard from a lot of people, and I've read a lot about, is that idea of the grind. Like, the game is very grind-based. There aren't a lot of story options. This is not an RPG by any stretch of the imagination. If you're looking for a spaceflight sim that's going to give you a specific character, that's going through a specific adventure, and you have to complete mission after mission after mission, and you'll have the story developed for you, this is not the game that you're going to be looking to. That's one of the biggest reasons I think I may have spoken to you about this. I know I've spoken to other people about it. This is one of the main reasons I decided to start doing the name logs, and sort of doing the creative writing aspect of me writing from the first person, or writing in the first person, of a female pilot in this universe, and writing about her experiences in this thing, is because it's sort of created for me the opportunity, one, to sort of flex my sort of creative limbs so that I can sort of, you know, do that in general. But also it fleshed out the experience of getting into a cockpit and flying around from station to station. It allowed me sort of stretch my my imagination bug. This grind aspect, this like sort of mission aspect, the mechanical aspects of Elite Dangerous, they don't seem to have changed all that much in terms of what Spacelegs adds.
Right.
I mean, everything that I've seen is sort of that's sort of the aspect of what the game is, and everything I've played. It's very much a game that, and as far as I can tell, Frontier's been extremely welcoming of this from their community as well. Like, they sort of give you a thing. They give you a system to work with, they give you a system to work in, which is the game itself. And then you sort of put in everything you want. I recently came in contact with some other folks that are doing RPs and things of that sort. And quite a number of them don't necessarily rely on the in-game aspects to continue with what they're doing, because the world itself, beyond the sort of droll, maybe not droll, I don't think it's droll, beyond the sort of mechanical aspects of getting in the cockpit, running a mission, looking at your BGS numbers, making sure that you have this specific set of missions done, make sure that you're trading this specific thing, making sure that if you're trying to expand on the system from your power play side, that you have the right system in power at the moment, and then you have the amount of work done to switch it over once you get that thing converted so that you can maintain it at a lower CC cost, things of that sort. Like, I don't see the Odyssey altering any of that with any major, or I don't see any major intent to sort of alter that system. In terms of the voices you're hearing about sort of Odyssey being this drawl, or sort of nothing but grind game, are those the same voices that are sort of already not into this grind thing, or are these different groups of
I think
folks?
I think a lot of them are in that category of being tired of the grind,
Hmm?
probably from having done it themselves for so long.
Yeah, so
Um, I think a
I've been
lot of it
trading.
is in your personal approach to it.
Huh?
Like most of the grind, I guess, that I would have had to go through for engineering, I ended up doing inadvertently through regular gameplay before I like understood engineering and a lot of other stuff. Like geez, I think I played for like 15 months before I knew about EDDB or Inara
Right. Yeah.
or
Same.
even like Frontier
Same.
forums or like the community live streams. And a lot of it was just me sort of feeling my way through as I went, like picking up missions from such and such and like what you got from in game before the codex was in the game. Actually, I learned the codex is what when they put that in is where I really became like interested in stuff, and it might have already been there. I'm not sure. There was a point in time where I played for a good while, and then just quit playing because I felt like it was taking me too long to get progression in anything.
Huh?
I did a little bit of math, and I thought it was going to take me like 4 years to get to a federal Corvette, and I don't know. That was, and then Red Dead came out, and then uh, I got back on, and the whole, the panels and stuff, the layouts were different, a little
Huh?
bit easier to get information out of, and that's when I learned about like the Dark Wheel and Raxxla. That really sank its teeth into me and hasn't quite let go because
Now this is the
this is a
actual
puzzle.
in-game mysteries as opposed to the squadron, correct?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
the the ghost world or alien construct or whichever it
yeah.
might be,
So I
which
know
sent me
I know
down
that
this
you
tunnel
guys
of books. Oh my gosh.
I know that you guys are like Raxley itself, like the squadron itself, is sort of spends a lot of time discussing the idea of Raxley and the adventuring and sort of the looking forward, the looking the looking for Raxley and things of that sort. Uh, and I know that based on my interactions with you and also sort of my looking into your discussions on the forums, I know that that's like one of your big things. You have it's like the thing that you do and enjoy sort of looking into. And the conversation's gotten like very, very deeply into sort of the nitty gritty about, uh, you know, the way the systems work, Frontier, things of that sort. And I know that you very much enjoy. I don't want to say speculating because that's not the right word because you're looking into things as well. Uh, your Raxxla theories. Now I know this is a
Right.
very secretive thing to some Elite Dangerous players, and the Dark Wheel itself is like one of those very secretive organizations that are alleged and don't necessarily exist. What is like what is your thing when it comes to Raxxla? Do you this is like the fun topic that I want. I know that you're gonna sort of enjoy this one. So you're free to go ahead, like fucking cut loose, man.
So
What's your deal with Raxxla?
so I'm not 100% sure what to expect from Raxxla in terms of whatever mysteries it may entail. I do find them to be increasingly alluring.
Huh?
Uh, I think that the Dark Wheel, I don't know specifically the minor faction, but like the Dark Wheel presence in game that might not be the one that we know about firsthand through minor factions of BGS work. I think that there's a connection with that in some way that might involve at least a small degree of gameplay storytelling.
Mhm.
You know, like after I had read the Dark Wheel novella and, you know, have looked up a lot of the known knowns and the known unknowns and then the unknown unknowns, uh, you know, that there is to
It's
find
there.
out about with it. It seems that I get the impression that we get our initial Sidewinder from a contact within the Dark Wheel. Our mysterious benefactor, I forget what the wording for it was,
No,
but
this
you
is
know, to me,
literally
it's
the start of the game. When you
when you
start, you
first start, yeah, and you get your
get your
little
commander name.
message,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
and it
your
says
theory is
something
that the
like, you know,
entirety of the. Are you saying that the entirety of the Pilots Federation is run by the Dark Wheel? Are they the Dark Wheel? Are they the Dark Wheel?
so I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that. I think that perhaps a portion of those within the Pilots Federation are Dark Wheel, perhaps like as a shadow government or an adverse to, let's say, less savory shadow governments that may exist. Groups like the Club or like INRA specifically, whenever they were involved. Not, I think INRA actually happened significantly before the timeline of Elite Dangerous's gameplay starts.
Yeah, no,
But
Inra was the that was the original Elite.
yeah,
That's
and you know, there's like in the book and here the wheel, they make reference to it. I'm not sure what the timeline for that book is supposed to be relative to when this game starts. I think it takes place before the present of what is Elite Dangerous, but I'm not exactly sure when.
I've got BioGlitch. I've got BioGlitch CC here in the chat that says that the Pilots Federation being the Dark Wheel, or at least part of the Dark Wheel, seems to me like what the game is trying to propose indirectly. What say you, Commander Filthymick420?
I think that I kind of agree with that. I think there's some good documentation to suggest that in some of the, I think it's Taurus beacons in like Shinar de Desra, where it references not necessarily the Pilots Federation, but like Elite, what is it, Elite Pilots, Elite Federation of Pilots or something like that. Without looking in my knowledge base,
Well,
most of this information
there's the Pilots Federation on the whole, and then there's the Elite Pirates, or Elite Pilots, which is like a subset of the Pilots Federation, which I think, according to the lore, is like the compartmentalized, super top secret folks that are working like in the White House type thing, as opposed to just the normal grunts that work in like the DMV or something, you know?
Right. And that's kind of a little bit how I feel that the Dark Wheel faction is sort of like the local grunts working commerce in the DMV or whatever else. Like, I think that could be tied to the main faction, but only as a representation.
Now, you don't... Now, in terms of the Dark Wheel, as it's described in the Codex, which is sort of like this... I mean, like a group of adventurers. It actually isn't like a... If I recall correctly, it isn't quite an organized, like, group or government in that sense. Now you're venturing that the faction, the Dark Whale, that's currently in Shinra de Desra, is not necessarily representative of sort of what the spirit of the Dark Wheel that the developers were trying to produce when they conceived of the idea of what the Dark Wheel was and put it into the codex. This is just sort of like a front organization that calls itself the Dark Wheel. I know there are theories having to do with the Dark Wheel that say that the in-game faction currently is not the same Dark Wheel as the folks that are looking for Raxxla. Is that sort of an accurate way to put sort of what you're thinking?
I don't get too many vibes off of them for that. Mostly from like the cookie cutter nature of the text involved in the missions and whatnot. I've seen screenshots from earlier iterations of how the missions were being done through them that seem to suggest a little bit more. But since then, they've kind of been more uniform to the rest of whatever's going on.
I mean, they work within the faction system. Now, I know that there was, or rather, I don't know. I've read and sort of seen posts from folks that mentioned that there was a lot more from that Dark Wheel faction having to do with like very specific faction-based missions that fit with what the Dark Wheel was trying to do. Now, but without getting sort of too deeply into more of the BGS stuff that we talked about earlier, do you expect that there might be more of that stuff coming? Do you think it's something that would be beneficial to that Dark Wheel lore side of what's going on in the game?
I would like to think so, or I definitely hope so. I think Odyssey will provide opportunity for more stuff to be discovered. Whether or not that's an avenue they'll choose to take is yet to be seen. I want to be hopeful about it. Over the years, it seems trying to be hopeful is self-defeating when it comes to what to expect from Frontier regarding stuff. They're a very hard company to seem to be inside the head of for what they're planning on doing. Every time I seem to think that something's leading to a specific end result, it tends to be completely wrong.
That's
so
a mystery.
It's hard to say.
The Raxxla mystery is definitely a mystery for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
I know the most recent appearance of Mick in the logs had to do with Ash, or what do they call it? It wasn't called Fort Ash. The Fort Ash mission, the Highford cache mystery and sort of trail the Highford cache that leads to Fort Ash. In the two logs that have come from sort of that interaction with you, where we hung up, we sort of went through the whole of the trail, ended up at Fort Ash. In both of those, I sort of brought up the idea that I haven't seen a lot of, but has sort of occurred to me, or has been growingly occurring to me more often, that a lot of the mysteries that were being brought up in Galnet and through the mysteries and sort of canon science side of things pertained a lot more to the Thargoids and the Guardians rather than anything having to do with the Raxxla situation on the whole. Be it sort of the exploration and discovery and space exobiology side of Raxxla, or the adventure side of sort of trying to find the planet itself. In terms of the in-game aspects of what you're doing, and I know that you have a ton of ideas about what Raxxla is, where it might be, which I'd like you to get into as well. do you happen to think that currently there is a relation between Raxxla, the Guardians, and the Thargoids? Do you think if there isn't currently one, at least in canon lore, that there will be one and should be one? And what is sort of what's your take on that situation there?
So it's been said that there won't be any clues regarding Raxxla, but I personally take that with a grain of salt. I think there's a lot of context that is easily interpreted differently by different people. In that like whenever I hear that, I don't take that as to mean that there's no clues as to where to find Raxxla in game. I take that as don't expect like David Braben or Michael Brooks or like the community managers to pop on and say, "Hey guys, we got a hint for where to find Raxxla." You know what I mean? I think that there's already a trail of breadcrumbs in place, and that they're just few and far between. That there's clues out there for us to find, that we just have to be able to know that that's what we're finding.
So we have yet to find. Oh.
Yeah, I think potentially we may have found some of the stuff, but don't know that it leads to that because it may also seem like it ties into something else.
We're in that weird situation where we're sitting with the what's that? I suppose that's like the Citizen Kane situation, where we have sort of the mystery that we're looking at, or we have the answer to the mystery, but we don't realize it until sort of it's already either too late or we're years down the road, and then we see the puzzle piece again as we're sort of recapping everything. We're like, how do we not figure that out immediately?
And and I think it's even been suggested that to some extent it's a little bit obvious.
BioGlitch says Rick Sanchez is Raxxla. I'm trying to figure out who Rick Sanchez is.
From Rick and Morty. You know, I might be willing to agree that Rick's personal bathroom might be on Raxxla.
Now, I know you guys in the Raxxla crew have a meme photo floating around about a guy in a green suit. Now, is that Raxxla as well? Like, what is the situation with that guy?
Oh man, I don't know. I'd have to actually. I don't know if I'm aware of the photo. I'd have to go back and look through some.
It's been a while since I saw the photo. It was we were if I remember correctly, I was asking about it, and someone was like, "I found him. I found Raxxla." So I am currently in a situation where I'm going to need to take a leak in a short amount of time. So I think that might be a good cue to like wrap up this specific stream. Before I do, I want to give you a chance to sort of give again sort of a rough explanation of what's going on with Raxxla. If you guys are looking to recruit anybody, if there are any specific things that you guys are looking to do or get done, and any other sort of odds and ends that you want to address before we end the stream.
Okay, yeah, so I would say that we're definitely recruiting. We're always looking for new commanders willing to learn the game and knowledgeable commanders willing to share experiences with others. I guess we have this philosophy that the more people we can keep playing the game, the better it's going to make the game. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the content comes from what you create. So the more people you got, we like to do things every now and then, like we did an SRV race once on through a big canyon.
Yeah, you guys did
followed by a big battle royale destruction derby in a crater. We also did
you guys did one of those
Sidewinder
in
Slam
Sand
Fest.
too, I believe too, right? You did
Yeah, I think
a
that was the Sidewinder Slam Fest.
sidewinder destruction, right?
Where, right, we were doing like a demo derby inside the station,
Yeah, that is amazing.
which so it's a fully engineered, upgraded, advanced thruster sidewinders are not easy to control and smash into other sidewinders inside of a station. I just want to say that now.
I can see I can see that being a bit of an issue in terms of control and sort of keeping the thing
yeah.
off the walls.
A lot of it would turn into like a near miss followed by a smack into someone's landing pad or something.
Right. So you guys are definitely doing recruiting. You're looking for folks that are. You're not being
Any level of experience.
any level of experience. You're looking for folks that are definitely into. Are you looking specifically for folks that are into the Raxxla thing, or is this sort of or into the Dark Wheel and Raxxla adventures, or
No,
search?
I think that type of stuff will end up coming as they play. Whether or not they're interested in that is entirely up to them. A needle in the haystack the size of a galaxy isn't for everybody, and I can understand that. But, anything that anybody wants to learn or has their own insight, I'm always, open to a theory to try to lend an opinion on, or opinions on my theories, or stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a relative. So my experience is that Raxxla is far from a strictly business styled squadron. It's definitely a player group, and you guys are all enjoying your time with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any? Do you guys currently have any specific activities coming up? Do you have any more of these races? Do you have any more of these demolition derbies that you guys currently have planned? Trips to Colonia, things of that sort?
Not offhand do I think that we have anything specifically planned. There's always like backburnered ideas and stuff that we're looking forward to trying out at some point in time. Right now, our main focus is trying to secure leaderboard placement for anti-Xeno defense for squadron leaderboards.
Okay.
I think we're currently in 3rd place, and we're trying to keep a firm hold on our 3rd place position, and also hopefully have time to climb a little higher than that.
So uncommitted.
I see AXI is on there, and they're very, very good lead ahead of us. So
Yeah, I mean they're the guys when it comes to. They're the folks when it comes to the AX combat. But so you are definitely looking for anyone, definitely currently looking for anyone that is interested in doing some AXI combat, or AX combat rather.
Yeah, anyone that wants to learn. We love taking people out to the Guardian sites and helping them with the process of knowing what to do when you get there, since there's not a lot of explanation in what to do. If I would have found that myself accidentally, I think I would have drove around there and got killed by a sentinel and been like, oh, well, this is interesting, but I don't know what this is. So, it's good to, it's I don't know, it's fun. I get enjoyment out of, and they see it and they're like, oh, holy shit, check this out. Wow, look at all these structures. And, that's fun.
Yeah, they just they did they showed the new Thargoid structures that came about from that Hyford cache recently. Those things are beautiful, man. If you haven't been to the Thargoid structures yet,
those ones yet. The new ones that came about.
Highly recommend you find yourself in a position to visit any of the Thargoid structures in Guardian Ruins. They are extremely beautiful sites within the game.
Yeah. Very
so
HR Geiger.
Oh, yeah. Well, beyond that, yes and yes. Very
inspired,
Geiger.
An original concept inspired by.
Yeah, no, there's a very specific. There's a very specific aesthetic that they're sticking to. like a really solid theme that they're creating varieties from when it comes to the Thargoids. And it's just beautiful stuff. I think again, I need to take a leak. So I want to end the stream now. I want to thank Commander Filthymick420 for joining the stream today and sort of walking us through his whole Elite Danger's world as it stands. Now, in the event that you happen to read the name logs, which are on Inara, you can find them on the links to my stream. He will come up on occasion. As you can tell from our interaction, he is not quite the crazy guy that the 19-year-old Cadence Nane interacts with, who happens to be, I believe, what? How is it that you described him to me the first time? You said he was an onion head addict.
Yeah, I would say passive onion head addict, conspiracy theorist, paranoia
nut
person.
Yeah.
Who say governmental malcontent.
Right. Yes. So as you can tell, Commander Filthymick420 is not exactly the person that Cadence Nane is describing in those logs. So if you are interested in any of the things that he's discussed, Raxxla, if you're looking for a big gaming group on the PS4 side, if you are currently interested in and do not have a lot of experience with AX combat, Xeno combat, Thargoid hunting,
PvE, BGS,
anything you guys want to do, if you guys are interested in the Raxxla group, you can look them up in the Squadron search engine under Raxxla, or I believe it's RXLA, correct?
Yeah, you can just search the
RXLA.
Squadron tag RXLA. That'll weed out
It'll
any
pop up here.
imposters.
And you'll pull up Raxxla. You'll find yourself with this situation here. And if you are not already a member of a squadron, it'll allow you to introduce yourselves and say, hey, I want to join the squadron. This is my situation. What is the situation in terms of the invitation and acceptance? Or is everyone in Raxxla allowed to invite or accept Raxxla members, or is that being handled up at the top?
Anyone can suggest somebody. 9 times out of 10, if someone in the squadron's suggesting someone, then they're going to get in. I think we have a method of... See, there's been times where we've had an issue with somebody in the squadron, whether it be due to some form of miscommunication or another, maybe something will be taken out of context, but then the one party will become hostile about it and end up becoming an issue for a lot of players, where they're going to be aggressively hostile in chats and in PSN messages and stuff. And so now we have to kind of... There's been instances where they've tried to come back with a changed name or a separate account. We do try to cross-reference people's friends list for griefers and stuff, known griefers, to try to make sure that we're not getting a mole in the faction that can give everybody's location out or whatever at any random point in time. But aside from that, it's most of the time you're probably going to get in if you apply. Unless, and in which case, if there is, say, you've got Commander Harry Potter happens to be on your friends list, for example, we'll probably be like, hey, this person has kind of a bad reputation. How do you know them? You're probably still going to get in unless you tell us some stuff like, oh, yeah, me and him are friends. We go out of our way to try to piss people off.
Right. Okay.
But there's still plenty of personality leeway available in the squadron. Everybody's in the squad. There's so many different personality types. Like, there's going to be somebody that anyone clicks with.
Sounds good. All right. So again, if you're watching and you were interested in joining a player group, if you're new, or you've been playing for a while and you're not exactly happy with your player group, or you've never joined a player group, you are welcome to check out Raxxla, the Raxxla Squadron on the PS4 side. That's RXLA. It's about 270 members now. They are extremely knowledgeable. They have a specific PlayStation chat account in which they share any number of graphics having to do with information, plot routes, ship builds, things of that sort. I want to thank Commander Filthymick again for joining the stream, and wish him every luck for the remainder of the Squadron season. Mick, if you'd like to say your sort of finishing touches, I have to go take a leak. Still in there? I can't tell if he's there.
Oh, wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I can hear you now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great talking about all this.
Absolutely.
Sharing, the insight, talking about the Squadron and everything. So yeah, look for us in the Squadron tabs, RXLA. Hope to see you in space.
Yeah, I'll see you there, man. Take care.
All right, take it easy.